I don't know what you're going through right now, but what I do know is your success rate of surviving the worst day of your life is 100%. You've gotten through every terrible thing that's happened to you up until this point. Every heartbreak, every broken bone, every moment you thought you couldn't go on. Yet here you are. So despite how it feels, the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor that you'll get through what you're facing right now. My plea to you is simple. Just keep going. Those 3 words have carried me further than I could ever have imagined. I've accomplished a lot of things in life. People tell me that all the time. But there's been days that alarm clock goes off and I just can't. I'm emotionally and physically exhausted, wondering how I got to this point, and even worse, why I'm choosing to push myself further. But there's something about forgetting the big picture for a second and just focusing on taking one step, even if that step is merely getting out of bed. Because if you can do one thing, you can do 2, and 2 can multiply to 20. But if you do nothing, you can multiply nothing by whatever you want, and it's still nothing. So just keep going. On my worst days, I found comfort in knowing that a river cuts through rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence. So continue to sail towards your dreams. Not because you feel strong today, not because winning is guaranteed, but because you know you can never lose. You can only win or learn. That's it. Just keep going. So when the urge to quit whispers in your ear, remember, you'll get through this just as long as you let every setback be a lesson, each challenge a classroom, and every failure a meticulous teacher. You are perhaps without realizing it, laying down the invisible milestones on your journey to greatness. And the only thing that could stop you is you. And by definition, there's only one way to be unstoppable. Just keep going. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. This is a saying that I have to remind myself of often. And I've experienced both sides of this reality. I've been low and needed someone to talk to, but never really said anything. And at other times, I've been frustrated with people not realizing what battles they were facing that they never told me about. But I've learned a few things. The first is, don't take anything too personally. We make the mistake of making ourselves the center of everything that happens to us. But in someone else's story, you're probably not the main villain, or maybe not a villain at all. Sometimes you're just a background character in a nightmare that's someone else's life. So practice giving grace before anger, and learn to ask questions before passing judgment. Practice being kind. And the second thing is, a smile is free, and a genuine "how are you doing" doesn't cost you anything. So you always have something to give to everybody you meet. Never underestimate the power of that. And maybe they won't smile back, or maybe your smile was exactly what they needed to keep going today. You never know. But either way, you have nothing to lose and potentially a life to change just by spreading a little kindness. And finally, embrace curiosity. Approach every person with the mindset that you know nothing about them, because more often than not, that's the truth. But it doesn't have to stay like that. As the saying goes, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth so you can listen twice as much as you speak. And you can learn something from everybody, trust me. And a little bit of listening goes a long way. In a world making us choose sides based on who we vote for, what pronouns we use, or how much money we make, I say we choose being kind over anything else. And I firmly believe 8 billion people in the world need to redefine what success is. We want to be doctors and CEOs. We want to be rock star parents. We want to be healthy. And there's nothing wrong with being all those things, just as long as we don't forget to be kind. One of my favorite sayings is that normal is an illusion. What's normal for a spider is chaos for a fly. Have you ever stopped to think about how hard we fight to be normal? How much effort we put into becoming what we think we're supposed to be, from how we dress to what we do for work. But I had a thought recently. What if the true measure of success isn't how good you are at being what you're supposed to be, but rather how hard you fight to be who you are? And the funny thing is, when I reflect back on my life, I got really good at playing the role of who I was supposed to be. I got good grades in school, I went to college, and got a good paying job. Set for life, some would say. But whose life? That's the question I never had the courage to ask. Instead, I walked in shoes that didn't quite fit on a path that didn't quite belong to me. And fast forward over a decade later, and here I am. I finally walked away from the security of a 6-figure job to talking to a microphone to strangers for exactly $0 per hour. And I'm okay with that, because in the process, I found something much more valuable: my path. A journey not measured by currency, but by purpose and passion. And I know it sounds crazy, but so do most things before you try them. All I know is if you're always trying to fit in, by definition, you will never have room to grow. If you take a seed from an oak tree and you put it in a tiny pot, it'll fit, but it'll never grow to the oak tree that it could be. It's only by daring to be different that you could find out what you're really meant to be. And yes, by venturing into new ground, it's a risk. There may be moments of uncertainty, but remember, every towering tree once began as a humble seed, courageously pushing beyond the comfort of the earth to reach the sky. So take a chance on you. Not the you that the world thinks you're supposed to be, but the real you. The one the 8 to 10-year-old version of you would be proud of. That one. The one that dreams, that dares, that defies. And so I urge you, don't wait a decade like I did to act on your dreams. Start now, even if it's 15 minutes a day. Do something every day that ignites your soul and sets your heart ablaze. If you do that, you'll most certainly change yourself. And who knows, you might just change the world. So here's to taking that first step, because the world doesn't just need dreams. It needs dreamers who act. What's that big goal that you're working towards? That dream that dances on the edge of your mind. That goal that's found its way onto your list year after year. There's a saying that life is lived moving forward, but only understood looking backwards. Meaning some of the things that matter most, as you do them, don't seem like they're adding up to much. That is, until you look back and see how far you've really come. The question will always be, will you trust the process long enough to hold on? If you plant a seed and you water it, the next day you won't notice much. If you water it again and come back the day after that, again, probably nothing. But if you stick with it, at some point you will see a change. You just have to trust the process. For me personally, my journey into real estate is probably the best example that I can think of. I'd submit offers to purchase houses, and over, they would get rejected. But I realized once I submitted those offers, I had little control over the final outcome. I couldn't force somebody to accept my offer to purchase their house. But what I did have control over was the process. The decision to submit 2 offers or 20, to immerse myself in 1 networking event or 10, those goals were 100% mine to own. Those were my metaphorical seeds that needed watering. And it just so happens that submitting 20 offers instead of 2 increases my odds exponentially. And yeah, it took a while, but the year I figured that out, well, the rest is history. The lesson: focus on actions over outcomes. And it's rarely about the amount of effort you could put in, and more about how long you could sustain those efforts. 15 minutes a day for 5 years will always be more than 5 hours a day just for 5 weeks. And while that may sound obvious, I'd argue for you to take a look at the Instagrams and the TikToks of today and see their overglorification on the quote-unquote grind. And I have nothing against hard work, just as long as you don't confuse intensity with commitment. I'm a firm believer that most battles are won in the shadows. In those 15 non-negotiable minutes a day where you do the thing that you know you're supposed to do. Every day. Watering that metaphorical seed that will one day grow into your dreams. Even though that seed hasn't pushed through the ground, you still show up, pouring into what you know will one day pay off. So I challenge you, trust in the process, even when progress seems invisible. Remember, the intensity of your efforts is important, but the duration and consistency will define your success. Water your seeds today and every day with passion and persistence, and turn that dream dancing in your mind into a reality you can hold. One step at a time.